What's up, Flesh and Blood gamers? Today I have a new deck tech for a deck that maybe you thought was dead, but he's back. He's back from the dead. Zen is still alive, and I've got a pretty good build for him here, I think. So, obviously, Art of War banned, that sucks. Bonds banned, that sucks even more. But, I was still interested in playing Zen. I think Zen actually presents a pretty interesting way to fight the meta. If Enigma's quite a good deck, then maybe we can use Zen as a way to target her. Let's just talk about ninja design for a second. Since Uprising, all ninjas have been really balanced around Art of War existing. So Bai is basically just head jabs into a 0 for 5, and that is not good enough to win anything unless you have Art of War. Katsu is designed around Bonds of Ancestry, which gets a huge power boost by Art of War, while also just being really strong by itself. And Zen is also designed around Tigers, which in my opinion really require Art of War to be even close to efficient. So basically with the most recent banned and restricted announcement, they banned all ninja design since Uprising. So that's pretty cool. But Zen does have a lot of upsides. He has a lot of go again, and he can spike turns with powerful cards still. Traverse is just still so powerful, and playing Chase the Tail is a very high value play, especially when you can do it off 2 blues, which is its third upside. All the other ninjas have really bad blues. Bai especially, if you draw a 4 blue hand does basically nothing. Hatsu, he gets to go Kadachi 2. Those are just really not good turns. But Zen, on the other hand, when he draws multiple blues, including a Chi, he gets to have his strongest turns in his whole deck. So Zen, as a ninja, actually solves a lot of ninja problems. The issue with Zen is that he actually lacks efficiency. If you just draw reds in your hand, and your hand has a couple hundred wins in it, maybe it even has some good cards like Bittering Thorn, you actually can't get over the damage threshold of other decks. But if we draw our blues, then we can get over the damage threshold of other decks. So how do we solve the Zen problem? We can't play Bonds of Ancestry to be overrate on turns that we don't get to activate our Chi. We can't play that combo anymore. So we can play red generics. Red generics are actually overrate, things like Snatch, E-Strike, draw a card, and Ninja actually has pretty unique ways to give those cards go again. Also, with the banning of Art of War, the Strider-like piece is actually a lot less good. So we can start playing Snapdragon Scalers to give those go again as well. We can also play more overrate blues, try and make sure that every hand we play is going to be overrate, and we can lean into variants a little more. Let me show you the deck that I've come up with to try and take advantage of the good side of Zen while also pushing past Zen's issues. This is the Kadachi Snapdragon Scalers Zen deck. When we look at the deck, the big cards are the 6 even bigger than that. This card is very interesting, came out in Everfest. If you deal attack damage, then you can play it. So the play pattern is we attack with our Kadachi, and it hits for 1. And then we play the blue or red even bigger than that. And then we get to look at the top some amount of cards, and then reveal a card from the top, and if it has more attack than the damage we dealt, we draw a card, and make a Quicken token, importantly. So what that means is that we get to consistently play cards like E-Strike with Go Again, and we get to play Snatch with Go Again. And we get to play cards like Droplet with Go Again. And Droplet is actually a really interesting conclusion. In my time drafting Mistveil, I really came to appreciate that Droplet is way more powerful than it looks on the surface, especially when paired with Pathwell Traveled. There's definitely a reason why Pathwell Traveled, you're not allowed to have 3 of those in your deck. If you're allowed to have 3 of those in your deck, then this deck would be so consistent. Unfortunately, we're not. So I had to find one more way to really get Go Again, which was Flock of the Featherwalkers. We can use Flock of the Featherwalkers to reveal Snatch and then Arsenal Snatch for our next turn. Or sometimes we can even give Flock of the Featherwalkers Go again, with even bigger than that, and then play the Flock Revealing Snatch with Go again, and then play Snatch with Go again. So things get really out of hand. This is a Kadachi deck. Almost all of our blues cost 0. The only one that doesn't is Levels of Enlightenment, but in this deck, Levels of Enlightenment really acts as a red. It does not act as a blue. It only acts as a blue to turn on our chi flips. We are not playing the Sacred Art for Zen in this deck because it does not cost 0, but we're playing all the other chi, and Levels really is just for flipping chi while acting as a red. Some important things to note about this deck is that if you have a flip chi as a blue in your hand, you cannot activate Kadachis with Go again, so just make sure you remember that. One of the big things about this deck is that in order to turn on blue even bigger than that, we had to kind of mess with our blue base a little bit. I used to be playing more 0 for 1 Go Again cards, but having too many 0 for 1 Go Again at blue really messes with our even bigger than that hit rate. We have to play some weird blues that attack for 2, a Soulbeat Strike, it blocks 3, and sometimes it has Go Again. This one is okay, mostly blocking 3 is pretty good, and Droplet attacks for 2. The good thing about Droplet is that if we have a Quicken token and a Chi, you can play the Droplet and then play a Chi, and it's just a 0 for 4, which is extremely good rate for a blue. But also, if your hand is just blue 100 wins, Droplet, the 2-card 6 with Shuko, you know, off our blues, that's actually a fine rate. Sometimes you'll draw hands like that, and you just have to make the best of it. Sideboard, we have some sideboard cards. And I do have some cards on the maybe board. I do think that we could play even more generics. This deck could become something of a 4s deck, where we're playing everything that says 4 on it, so Flick Flack, Sink Blow, Fate Foreseen, along with Snatch. And E-Strike, which does 5. But I wanted to lean into the Go Again package. Playing Sink Blow and Fate Foreseen really didn't make sense. I do think that's a different build, though. Also, Attune with the Cosmic Vibration is a card that I tested. Unfortunately, I think in this meta, just due to the new heroes, you really can't put Attune with Cosmic Vibrations in your deck because we reveal a card from our opponent's deck. And we can get +3 if we reveal blue. In some metas, this card's crazy. If Enigma is the best deck, then this is a 0 for 5 more than half the time. If Mew's the best deck, this card's a 0 for 5 more than half the time. So that's a card to think about. Let's look at a couple hands of this deck. This hand is fairly interesting. We have a couple plays that we could make. We would be having both Kadachis here, so we could use even bigger than that after swinging Kadachi to try and make a play off opting 3. And the great thing about red even bigger than that is even if you don't have a card that takes advantage of Go Again in your hand, you can still find one off the top fairly easily. We have 9 hits that are really good, and Flock of Featherwalkers is okay. We could also try and Arsenal to even bigger than that, playing both of the Chi cards and playing out a good Chi turn. If this were later in the game, I would most definitely be doing that and pitching one of these cards to the 12 Petal Kasaya. This turn is a lot more simple. We would definitely want to block with our Aspect of Tiger Body and then just go Kadachi Kadachi Flock and set up Levels Enlightenment for the next turn. Giving Levels Go Again is just so powerful in this deck because you get to oftentimes pitch a blue for the levels and then play a Chi and then pitch the Chi for Zen's ability, which allows us to get a 1 for 5 Go Again draw card, which is so above rate. Some important things to note about this deck is that this deck is pretty fairly favored into Enigma. However, it can brick. We're leaning into variants. We're leaning into Quicken tokens as our Go Again source. We're sometimes going to draw a hand that just does not have Go Again, and our Enigma opponent has just played Mirakai. It happens. This deck is not a deck that can beat Enigma literally 100% of the time, but the win rate's quite high. The other thing about this deck is that it is actually quite resilient to Assassin. This deck can play hands at any size, and is actually quite resilient to Disruption. And we simply make over 8 plays at 2 cards, and at 3 cards, and at 4 cards. We do still include some Tiger synergy. Obviously, Chase the Tail and Aspect of Tiger Body pair super well together, and if we have a Chi in hand and one of these cards, our turn goes through the roof. Blue Biting Breeze and a Chi, if the Blue Biting Breeze hits, is also just a 2-card 9, which, off of our blues, is insane. We're playing 100 Winds and Spinning Wheel Kick as just some extra targets for our Zen activation. The deck does want to block a little more than the old Zen decks wanted to, so oftentimes you'll be losing out on being able to play all of your most impactful combo cards, so we really need to have a lot more targets. One interesting thing about this deck is that Quicken tokens are actually extremely strong with the generic 2-for-6s. If you give Command and Conquer Go again, oftentimes you force your opponent, especially Enigma, into very awkward blocking patterns. We really take advantage of our sideboard really well. And one of the most important reasons to play Zen in this meta is that we're actually the best Warmongers deck available. It pitches for Gadachis, and almost everything we play is going to have Go again in this deck. We can send somewhere from 9 to 12 and play Warmongers basically every time we see Warmonger, which against decks like Viserai, Vincent, even decks like Aurora, we can really take advantage of them trying to play non-attack and attack in the same. That's the Zen deck tech. If you're looking for more content like this, please leave a like and subscribe.